How's it going? My name is Brent from Encore PPF and Tint, and today we're going to be working with some window tint, and we're going to be working with my son Gavin.
Hello.
He has never heat shrunk a window before, and that's what we're going to be showing him how to do today. So like never before, not one time. So we're going through all this very basics, and this is going to be, I'd say, a little bit of a drawn out video because we're going to just go through everything that I can teach him while we're showing him how to start learning how to tint windows. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started on this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check our pouches and make sure that we don't have anything that's going to scratch the vehicle when we're potentially leaning up against it to reach out into the window. And so he had a blade on there, I had a blade on there, hooked on. Go ahead and take that off and put it in your pouch. All right, great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and clean the rear window, and then we're going to apply the bounce pad. And a bounce pad is basically just a dryer sheet. Yep, that's plenty. All right, so he's wet the window down, and he's just going to go ahead and wipe it off. Another thing that you can do if you're working with a little bit older vehicle that's got a lot, like the window is like feels real gritty, is you can take a scrub pad, the white ones. These are designed for cleaning shower enclosures, fiberglass, so they will not scratch glass. Don't use like your home ones that you use for doing dishes. That's not going to work. And you can go over the window with this while it's wet and then dry that off, and that'll even get a little bit more of the contamination off the glass and allow you to be able to have a good surface for heat shrinking. All right, so let me show you how I do it. Yeah. All right, so wipe the window down. Make sure you get the top and bottom really good, and then flip it over to a little bit more dry spot on the towel and wipe it down one more time. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and apply the bounce pad to this, and for that we're going to go ahead and put a mist of, that's rubbing alcohol, and oops, that's not a mist, that's straight squirt. All right, let's try that again. All right, get a mist on there. All right, plenty. Now go ahead and take this bounce pad and wipe the window down. Just go from top to bottom. All right, see how you missed a spot here though? You don't want to miss any spots. We want to get full coverage on the whole window.
If it goes on the paint a little bit.
It's okay. So it was too much water. So better would be less water, because this is going to take like forever to dry. All right, so the reason that I call it a bounce pad is because that's a brand. Bounce is a brand. But so we're taking that dryer sheet, we're putting some water on the window, and then we're wiping the window down. And then what that's going to do is that's going to leave a layer of film on the glass that's going to allow the film not to immediately tack to the glass when we set it on there. And that's going to be helpful during our dry shrink process. All right, so we're going to be using an H pattern, and I'll show you exactly what that is. But what we want to do is grab a sponge and then squirt some water into it. And you don't want way too much water because you don't want it dripping or running all down the window. So just, lightly wet down a sponge, and then we'll go ahead and draw out our H pattern on the vehicle. So what you do is you want to go right in the middle of the glass. So we're going to say like right about here. And we're going to drag this across, and we're going to go up this side. You do the same thing. Kind of go with the defroster line. There you go. Then up and then down. Now you want to make sure that you're getting into the glass area.
Oh, I get it.
See how far over you are? You need to be over here because the pattern's not going to go over that far. Okay. And next time I would go like half in and half out. Like this, about like that.
All right.
Okay. Go ahead and come grab the other half of this.
I'm fine at that.
Okay. Switch your hands around. You stay over there. And we're gonna lay this down into place. On the, alrighty. Okay, let's. All right, so window tinting 101. When you cut out a pattern for a window in the computer, make sure you put the correct year, make, and model in there. Otherwise, you end up with something like this that is way too entirely small for this piece of glass. That is not the right window.
Did I do the windshield maybe?
No. All right, so that last pattern was not the right pattern. That was for a 4-door, and we're obviously working on a coupe. Well, I don't know, maybe you can't tell because of the camera angle, but this is a coupe, so much bigger back window. And let's go ahead and do our H pattern and get this set back down on here. And the H pattern, the reason that we do the H pattern is to tack down the center and then tack down the sides. We need all the fingers to be on the top and the bottom of the window, because window film will only heat shrink on the top and bottom of the roll. So if you try to shrink it on the sides, it doesn't shrink. It destroys the film. So you have to shrink on the factory edges, which is the top and bottom of the roll. All right, let's set this on here. Much better. That looks like the window we're trying to work on. All right. So you want liner side facing up. Now what we're gonna do is lift the film up here and squeegee this across on our H pattern. We'll push this down with our hands first to move all the fingers to the top and the bottom, and then we'll tack it down. You wanna do it with your hands first because it's very easy to crease that film. So it looks like we've got decent amount more finger on the top than we do on the bottom. And so the way to correct that is to lift this back up. And what we're gonna do is move our H pattern up a bit. Okay. And what that should do is that should distribute the fingers more evenly between the top and the bottom, and that's will be very helpful for heat shrinking. Probably not a huge deal on this window, but will be a big deal on windows that are gonna be much harder to shrink. If you get too much finger on the top or bottom, it can make it really difficult to work with. And then what I'm doing now is just drying the film off, because we are dry shrinking. Any moisture that's left on the film will potentially make it more difficult to shrink, and it won't shrink evenly. All right, so go ahead and lift that up a little bit. More, pull towards you. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Push those fingers down. Okay, those ones up. Great, and then you can run this.
Do I do it again now?
So you want to go ahead and run down like this. And then go up. All right, now that's tacked down, and that's our H pattern. And then we're gonna go ahead and dry off any excess moisture, and we'll get ready to shrink. So cool. All right, and actually before we get started, what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna draw on this window. So we're gonna pick right across the center, and then we're gonna go right up the middle. So now we are gonna have 4 sections of window, and then we're gonna go ahead and make some more lines here. Every couple inches. Okay, same thing across here. All right. If you want to go ahead and just basically take the center one across first, just drag it across. You don't have to put any pressure.
Was that too much pressure?
Yeah, yeah. You're just letting it just glide across.
You don't want doing
Well, you can push the finger over. There you go. All right, we didn't quite end up with enough lines on the bottom, but that's going to be okay. Draw yourself. It could have been one extra line in here. Let's go ahead and get our heat gun and get started. Make sure there's nothing in your pouch that can scratch. Hanging out? Nope, we're good. Okay. Now what you want to do is take and put the cord over your shoulder. That way it's not rubbing on the car. And so the reason that we put the lines in here is so that we're just going to shrink one little section at a time and work our way. So instead of having the entire window to shrink or this entire section, we're going to shrink it in smaller sections. That way we don't get ahead of ourselves, and it makes it a little bit less complicated when you're first starting with heat shrinking. All right, and the way that we shrink film is we're going to start from the middle and work our way down. So what you're going to do is you're going to shrink everything in this box first, and then you can move on to this one here.
Now, what do I do with my glove?
Yeah, so go ahead and put some heat on that. Okay, and you want to shrink downward. So turn the, oh, nope, that just means turn the heat gun a bit like this. Okay, now go ahead and push down to this line with your glove. Whole hand, like put your palm on it. Okay, you don't push down below the line because you haven't shrunk there yet. Don't point that at your hand. Okay. All right, next finger. Keep moving. No, no, no. Push it down. Okay, now we'll start shrinking in this area here. And what you're looking for is you're looking for the fingers to start going this way instead of going this way, and then you can push it out. Okay, hang on. All right, go ahead and just push that out. All right, keep moving your way out to the center. Okay, heat shrink all the way out. Get your whole box shrunk. Okay, now go ahead and push that whole box out. No, and don't come down too far. You haven't shrunk there yet. All right, now we'll start shrinking on this next box. And you always want to make sure and keep that heat gun moving so you don't overheat the film in one spot. Like, so that should be always moving. Okay, gonna need some more heat here because we have a finger going up and down. Okay. All right, now he's starting to get a little bit of a U shape here, and the U shapes can make things very difficult. So what we want to do is kind of push that guy out. You want to get rid of those U shapes. Anything that starts to look like a U shape, you want to push that down and get the finger over to the side. We'll try to explain more about that as we move along here. Okay, hang on. So when you're heat shrinking, you want to be coming in from the top like this, and you want to keep that heat gun moving. Okay, go ahead and push that out.
Oh, I'm pushing.
And another thing I've seen people do is they use a hard card to push this stuff out.
Oh.
I prefer the glove, but that's just personal preference. All right, so let's go ahead and get that shrunk down all the way to the bottom now. Okay, but hang on, take your time. You didn't shrink that enough. Keep going. Okay. And push all that out, and then we'll take care of that part from the other side. Okay, whole hand. Get some good pressure on it. If you're doing it with a glove, you got to get good pressure on it in order to get that pushed out. Or you can take a card and push this down. Now that we're at this point, what we need to do is what I call tightening up the bottom edge. You get these little fingers that pop up, and that is going to be a problem once you get the film on the inside. So go ahead and get some more direct heat on that. Okay, a little bit direct heat on that one, and then take it all the way across the bottom. You want to nice slow down. If you see anything pop up, like a little finger or anything, and start to move, ooh, okay. You want to keep the heat off the edge here.
Okay.
What's up? Oh. This must be my first time recording something. Your first time around me while I'm doing it. Okay. So now what we've got here is a little bit of a mess. That's going to be difficult once we get inside, if you can see that. Hopefully the camera picks that up. So what I'm going to do is put some air in there, and we're going to get some air around that, and we're going to heat that up. And what we want to do is get that to lay down nice and flat, just like that. There we go. All right, now let's go ahead and heat shrink the top. So just little section by little section.
Where did I start right now?
Yeah, so you start with the first box. Okay, so go ahead and push that out. Okay, and you can go ahead and take it now. Okay, hang on though.
Too fast.
Okay. Yeah, you're going, but you don't want to be so slow, and don't put the heat gun that close to the film. There you go. Come in from above. There you go. Now go ahead and push that stuff up and out. All right, and then go ahead and move on to your next box. Remember, come from above. Okay, keep giving it a little bit more heat. Shrink that down just a little bit more. Okay, you want to see those fingers kind of start to go this way, and then that means they're shrunk enough. But you see how you didn't quite get rid of that finger entirely? Okay, go ahead and push that all out.
This hurts.
Huh?
This hurts.
It hurts? What?
My bicep, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right, go ahead and heat the next box now. Remember, top, come from above it. Okay, push all those out. So what we'll do is I will heat shrink the other side to give you guys a good example of what it should look like when you're done shrinking it. When you first start, it's kind of messy, and that's totally normal. It's just the way that it goes. I mean, you have to learn how to understand the film, exactly what it's doing, and if you're making it tight or making it too tight, which is over shrunk, or there's just a lot to learn. So I would anticipate when you put the film on the inside, especially for your first quite a few cars, you're gonna have a lot of problems with your heat shrink. So you're gonna have little fingers popping up from around the edges. You're gonna have fingers, which are actually called peanuts, coming up off the defroster lines, and that all is it's just time consuming to get rid of all that stuff, but it's because the heat shrink isn't that good, and that's normal, unfortunately. When you're learning any trade, you got to get some hours in, some days. All right. So here's something to know is that, see how we've got the film loose on the side? We don't want that loose on the side, so hang on real quick. So we're gonna wet this back down, push that back down so that that's not popping up. Okay, now go ahead and then start in this box again. Remember, come from above, there you go. All right. And when you're heat shrinking, like I've said, what you're looking for is the film to start going, to tighten down to the window, and instead of the fingers going up and down, the film starts to pull tight this direction. And this is a dye-based product, so it shrinks really easy. When you get into like a true ceramic film, you get into some films that get much more difficult to heat shrink. All right, so you want to start from the bottom of that. And no, you're just shrinking the bottom of the finger. So right there, you're kind of shrinking right here, but you have to start at the bottom. Okay. Okay, go ahead and push this stuff out. You know, you could even make these lines closer together as you get closer to the bottom, because as you get closer to the bottom, you're going to have a lot more finger to heat shrink out. Okay, no. So once you start seeing this type of stuff out here, it's really just needs to be pushed out. Once those fingers start to go this way, you don't want to continue to put heat on them, because that will cause you some issues on the inside. This type of stuff is going to be a problem on the inside. That's going to just take up time during the install.
What do I do with those?
Well, we don't worry about those. We just keep going. It's just part of learning how to heat shrink. Okay, remember, yep, come from the top, and we're going up with it. So you got to start shrinking here, not here. Okay, hang on. A little bit more heat right here. Okay, and push all that out. No, maybe you would like, we could try the card as well. The problem with the card is that it's much easier to crease the film when you're pushing it out. And that's mostly with wet shrinking. When I was wet shrinking, we'd have a lot of, you could easily crease the film with the card. And so when I went to dry shrinking, I went right to using a glove. And so I never switched back over to using the card again, because of the problems I would have with it when I was wet shrinking. All right, so we're gonna come in from the top, and we're gonna shrink down our first square here. And see, I like to follow right up with my glove and push this stuff down. I don't like to let this sit for too long without being pushed out. So I just follow it up right away. I guess I should have shrunk the first side first, and then you could have done the other side. But that was his first heat shrinking. He had never even really watched me heat shrink that much, so. Okay, so we'll go ahead and heat this down. See how we keep that gun moving. Okay. Yeah, the bottom here could definitely use some more lines in it, so that you're shrinking smaller sections at a time. Huh? Yeah, it is. All right, we're working our way down. And I do like to get this stuff pushed out really quickly, because the longer you let it sit and cool, if it's in a weird line. So let's say you left, let's see if I can explain that better. All All right, let's say you left this line here and you let the film cool like that, it's gonna keep that memory, or this one's even better here. So this line going this way, the film is gonna remember that as it cools, and we don't want that. We want it to remember being flat. Okay, so we're just continuing to heat this bottom up and working our way down. Okay, go over here, heat that up. And now what we're gonna do is we are going to tighten up this bottom edge. So we're gonna put some heat on it, and if we see the film pop up at all, then we go ahead and put some more heat on it till it's laying more flat. And what that does is that's going to allow that edge to be nice and tight so that when we put it on the inside, we don't hopefully get any fingers popping up from the bottom. All right, let's work our way up now. Lucas, get me a little more cord here. Never mind, I got it. Okay. So we're gonna heat shrink that finger. You can see that the lines start to go this way, and then we're gonna push that out. Okay, so we're just going up. And we can push that out. See how everything's going this way now, and then we'll just immediately push that out. And we'll just keep working our way up. And you could put quite a few more lines in this too, because this is, you know, you could cut this stuff even in half. And so when I'm pushing this out with my glove, I'm using a substantial amount of pressure on it. Okay, we're heating up this top, taking it all the way to the top edge. Great. Now we'll go ahead and tighten up the shrink here on the very edge. Okay, that looks really good. So you could see the difference there by a couple things. One, a nice tight shrink, as well as pushing that stuff out immediately and not letting there be any lines going this way stick around. So you can see the difference in the shrink from side to side. So you can see here that we've got all these fingers still going up and down. And then this one has a lot of fingers coming this way, and those can all be areas that are gonna have a problem inside, especially if you have thicker defroster lines on a vehicle. A lot of Dodges or Lexus could also be a problem. And so maybe starting with the card would be even better for somebody that's new, because you can really get this stuff with a lot of pressure pushed down. All right, and then this part here wants to keep curling up because you got a little bit too much heat on the edge here, and especially as it comes up the side, there was a little bit too much heat, and that's gonna make the film wanna curl. And that's why that's what that mess is there. But not a big deal. I think that would install just fine. I wouldn't be concerned about that. Okay, well, that's the process of heat shrinking a rear window from start to finish. And that's Gavin's first time heat shrinking a rear window. Not too bad for the first time. It's fairly easy film to shrink, which is great. You know, if you get those less expensive films that are mostly dye based, then you'll get into a film that's a lot easier to shrink, and then you can work your way up to the harder films that are much more difficult. Appreciate you guys taking a look at this video. Hopefully you found something helpful, and if you did, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and we'll see you guys on the next one. All right, now you do yours. Go ahead, do your thumb. Oh, like a fist bump thumb.
Yeah. Wait, do you go sideways?
No, I go like this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.